So anyway, I think I just got muted there, but I wanted to just also just let you know that we're shortly, there'll be a communication out to staff. And then later this evening for families to let them know that we are extending the time of re-entry, that we won't be going back on November 2nd, that we feel like we have more things to do and to make it a really smooth opening. And we don't want to make an opening and then have to close and change everybody's experiences. And so we are going to be extending the reopening. And like I said before, the families are going to find out this afternoon or this evening. So I hope
Thank
that
you.
makes everybody take a big deep breath. It sure made Dave and I take a big deep breath last week when we asked about it and just listed the items that needed to be completed in order for us to make a really smooth transition for these really special learners and for you as special services staff. And we acknowledge and know and appreciate how much work and energy you have been putting into your daily work with students. And we're really extremely appreciative of that. And we have heard many, many things from families about the kinds of outreach that you've done and the kind of work that you're completing in this very unusual time. And we really want to, again, just tell you thank you so much for doing that. And we really appreciate it. We couldn't obviously run the school district without you. So really appreciate it. So today we're going to just be spending some time talking about some safety, some health precautions. We're going to be talking about some ideas about recess, about, socially distanced games, socially distanced ideas for classrooms. And we have lots of other things we're going to talk about. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the contract and for staff that have to move locations. We'll have all that information for you ready to go. So Dave, I'm going to pass it over to you and you're on.
Okay. Very good. Let me get my. All right, Abe, I can see you here in my little narrow little band of people I can see. So can you give me a thumbs up, Abe, if you can see my PowerPoint slide and nothing else? All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thanks a lot, Kelly, for that introduction, because Kelly's right. We've obviously this is, you just even the thought of bringing anybody back, I should say. It's unbelievable how many details there are, right, to take care of and to think through to make sure that everybody's safe and that everybody has a positive experience. So yeah, just echoing the idea that we're both grateful that we have a little bit more time now to get this right. I guess that would be a good way of saying it, because we want to do it well. And we also know, just from every time there's a communication that goes out, and when we did the training on Friday for the principals and their leadership teams and nurses, HRAs, office managers, custodial leads, it raises a lot of questions. So you're trying to, which is the ironic thing, right? Because we're providing information, we're providing this training, but it raises more questions because you can't cover everything, and there's so many little nuanced details. But the goal, we want to make sure that we answer all the questions, right? And so just out of courtesy, and it just makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of great questions, and some of them are like these nuanced details are like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a really good point. Well, okay, we should be thinking about that. And eventually we're going to launch it, and we're probably not going to have 100% of the questions answered, because then by launching it, that will raise its own questions, and we'll have to make adjustments and tweak, right? Just like all these other schools and districts that have already, done this before us. So anyway, we do, though, approach this today with a spirit of gratefulness to be able to work with you guys and to have the be in the positions here where we can try to provide as much information as we can in a meaningful way, in a thoughtful way, and knowing that this is not just a one and done, but we will have some time now between now and when we bring some kids back to get some more good questions answered, and just make sure that people feel as safe as they possibly can when we do this. Now, there's a little asterisk on the end when I just said that, because I also recognize that at some point this is it can be a nerve-wracking experience for people. It depends per person really in a lot of ways. So we're going to do everything we can to make you safe, create a setting to make you safe, and then also communicate everything we possibly can to help you feel safe. And then we also acknowledge probably at some point there may be some folks that may not be possible, even with everything that we do and say. An example could be someone that my best friend's mom is deathly afraid of airplanes, and she will not get on a flight, and some plane crashes in Ohio somewhere and they put it all over the news, and no matter what you try to explain to her about safety stats and features of these new planes and the odds of anything, she just is not going to be able to make herself do it. So we acknowledge that too, and we respect that could be people's reality as well. So anyway, without further ado, though, I want to get into our presentation here for you today. So some of this it's kind of a combination. There's pieces in this presentation that are pre-recorded, and so it'll just, as the slide goes on, it'll have a little audio recording or a video or both, and then there'll be other pieces where one of us will be jumping in and explaining a few pieces here for you. Okay, and so one of the pieces one of the approaches that we took as a district is to use an activity called Day in the Life of, and this has been really helpful for us, because what it does is it actually it puts you kind of think it through, like the path of a day of a kid coming to school. What's their experience like from when they get up to when they arrive at school, and then all the different pieces of the day, and then also at those key stages, how does that impact the staff? And through that process, we were able to generate lots of our own questions and ahas, and really go back to the drawing board in some cases, and come up with some information and some procedures that I think have been really helpful because of this process. So everything from the transportation to how do you get into enter the school in a safe way, and in this group, when we're bringing back such small numbers of kids, it's that'll give us a great opportunity to kind of test our systems more. But when we start if we get the chance, I should say, to start bringing back hundreds of kids at a time, then these things were going to be more exaggerated, and the need for social distancing and all that just becomes a little more complicated. So, but using the restrooms and toileting, and how the related services would work, and how about the lunchtime and meals, and how do all those work, and recess and supervision with all of that, and specialists, and then the transportation at the end of the day. So again, these are it was very helpful to kind of think through that way. So we're going to go through some of these pieces here with you, and give it our best shot with what we've come up to. Just want to start off by saying that every building has a COVID site safety coordinator, and their own training on this is evolving as well, because back in August, every school had one too, but boy, that was before people were really even coming back into the building at all. And it was more of what happens when visitors come, or just a few staff come. And then that started increasing, and now we're having conversations potentially about having some students come back. And so we're going to keep them informed, give them a little bit of grace if you're asking them some questions and they are not quite sure yet. They will be, and we'll provide them all the resources and answers. They'll be the liaison really for you. Between human resources, between the district office, or those of us that are working with the different components of safety. and then also the instructional model too, as that starts to unfold. Okay, well, let's take a little bit of a look at transportation for you. So this is going to give you an insight into some of the things that we're doing around transportation in our district to help keep the employees and the students as safe as possible here. So, you know, kids will get on the bus, and very friendly bus drivers, as you can see there. They're wearing appropriate PPE, protective equipment. There'll be seating charts on the bus, and again, it'll be a lot more straightforward with small numbers of students. But once we grow in the student numbers, you know, as much as possible, social distancing will be maintained by, again, staggering kids throughout the bus. If they're siblings, they may be able to ride together because they're already in their own, you know, cohort group at home and that kind of thing. The bus drivers will be cleaning the high touch areas after each route segment. So the outside of the doors, kids touch a lot, the railings, obviously, the edges of the seats as they're going down through. We're going to be communicating with our families and students that they need to dress maybe a little extra warmly, because we're going to be having the windows cracked open most times, just to increase the circulation of the airflow through the bus. And then at the end of each day, so they have, we own now some electrostatic disinfectant devices. So it electrically charges the particles, and so that and it's actually really neat when you're there watching it. The particles will actually attract and stick to the seat areas. They don't float around so much in the air. It actually charges them, so it's like static electricity, and then they'll stick to those areas, which is really pretty neat technology. Okay, we're gonna explain some of the personal protective equipment here, PPE. You'll hear that abbreviation a lot. PPE is basically, you know, the masks that you've been wearing, or gloves or gowns, face shields. Any of those things are personal protective equipment, and there's some different levels of them that organization, or like L&I has established some different risk factors. And I wanted to, before we get into the technical pieces of it from our standpoint, I wanted to show you, just using a parallel example of something that we all might relate to already a little bit more. And so if you think about personal protective equipment, and if we start to talk about risk levels, what we're talking about, if you see at the very bottom there, these are the levels of risk if you were not wearing any protective equipment at all. Okay, so if you're standing on the beach, it's virtually no risk at all, right? You're not gonna drown, probably. Guess it could rain real hard and you could look up, but otherwise, or you could be floating in a boat or snorkeling around. The deeper you go, right? If you hold your breath and you go down 40 feet, well, it's starting to become maybe a high risk now, right? You're going to be able to hold your breath all the way back up. Or if you went really far down, holding your breath 200 feet down, that's like extremely high risk now, right? So, but if you had a scuba tank on, right? Now, again, you have to, for this analogy here, you have to set aside the fact that, yeah, stuff can go wrong, like a submarine could blow up or whatever. Just set all that aside for a minute and just understand that in most cases, all the submarines that go down, they come back up and everybody gets out fine. Scuba divers do this all the time. They come up and they're fine, right? So just go with me here with this example. But you can see that once you wear that equipment, you're able to breathe and you're still safe, and you'll come up and you'll go home for dinner and all that, right? Now you could wear a scuba tank while you're walking around on the beach too, if you want, and that you'll be able to breathe just fine with that too. You don't need it necessarily. It's not, right? It's like kind of overkill, but you certainly could do it. Right? You could walk around with a snorkel on. See, okay? Does that make sense? So you can have more than you need, but if you at least have the adequate protection at any of these stages, it will help kind of equalize that level of safety, and that's why it's designed that way. Okay, so everybody think they got that analogy okay on there? Okay, so now Carrie's got a little audio clip that's going to happen when I hit the slide here. So go ahead and take a listen. Carrie is She's our district nurse supervisor here.
There's no sound on my end.
Oh, you're not hearing anything?
Mm-mm.
No,
Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. I'm gonna have to exit there real quick. I'll stop sharing and I'm gonna reshare. I just want to make sure that I've got this so you guys can hear it. There we go. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, we'll try it again.
Personal protective equipment,
How's
or
that?
PPE.
Okay, thanks.
PPE is the equipment we use to minimize exposure to hazards that can cause serious workplace injuries or illnesses. PPE is chosen based on the level of transmission risk identified for the expected activity. If you have questions about what your transmission level risk is, or need more PPE, or questions about what type of PPE you should use, you're going to contact your building COVID site safety coordinator for those instructions. Use of the appropriate PPE is important for everyone's safety. Be sure to wear the right mask for the right task. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, will be distributed by the maintenance department to each building via tubs. The scheduled delivery of this important equipment will depend on the number of students and staff that are on site. The COVID site safety coordinator will coordinate the storage and allocation of PPE for their building. In the initial push out of PPE for special services classrooms, the special services directors will have the specialized PPE for their classrooms in their areas and will distribute it appropriately. Now let's take a look at a quick video of what Molly and her team are doing to get us the appropriate PPE.
Welcome. This is the maintenance department and probably a building that you have not visited. Currently, the back area of our facility is serving as a staging area for our PPE supplies. Over the months, we have been identifying and purchasing and stocking needed supplies for when staff and students are on site. Let me take you on a tour. For example, each school has multiple tubs of PPE stock and supply. This tub, for instance, has Forest Views label on it. We have already previously sent out cloth masks for all staff in tubs, and we are ready to distribute more supplies and materials as students are scheduled to return on site. So I'd like to take you on a tour now of our materials in our PPE tubs.
Prior to COVID, Washington State Labor and Industries, or L&I, had already had defined levels of transmission risk. Along with the Department of Health for Washington State and OSBI, they have come out with COVID-19 transmission risk levels. We will be using those to identify the appropriate PPE for the tasks that are required in the school setting. Identifying wearing the appropriate PPE will allow you to do your required job duties safely. The higher the level of PPE used, the longer and closer you may remain in contact with others who are asymptomatic. While some levels of PPE allow you to be in a closer proximity to others for a longer period of time, when you can, you should still try to socially distance yourself. Something to keep in mind is that the transmission risk levels are what your risk level would be without any type of protection. When you wear the PPE that is required for each risk level based on the activities being performed, your risk level is reduced. When you add to that social distancing, your risk level is further reduced. Looking at the chart here, you can see that when two individuals who are both wearing masks maintain a social distancing, even when one is a carrier of COVID-19, the likelihood that the other person will get COVID-19 is very low.
Hi, I'm Carrie Johnson, registered nurse, nursing supervisor for Everett Public Schools, as well as the Respiratory Protection Program Administrator. And I want you to know that a lot of thought went into what type of PPE would be used in your classrooms. There are a lot of unknowns that happen in your classrooms. Some of your students won't be able to wear a mask all the time. Some students will compromise their mask. Some students may not be able to socially distance. and some students require some extra support that may not be necessarily in a regular general ed classroom. Taking all those into account, we decided to make the level of transmission risk for all special services classrooms, i.e. life skills, developmental preschool, and developmental kindergarten, at the second to highest level, which is considered level 3 or high risk transmission. This means that we're going to give you the type of PPE that you need to be able to make sure that you are safe, your students are safe, and that you can still do the fundamental tasks that you need to get your job done. If you look at the PPE chart, and we're going to go over that in here in just a few minutes, you'll see that the types of PPE that you are being given is actually an alternative to the extremely high risk transmission levels, which would be the highest level that we have. Because we don't have a plethora of N95s, nor the capacity to fit everybody to them, and the likelihood that our staff would fit into them is very low, we are supplying you with a KN95 mask every day and a face shield. The face shields are reusable, the KN95 masks are not.
COVID-19 transmission risk levels. There are 5 levels, 0 through 4. 0 is in the blue and it's negligible. 1 is defined as low, 2 is medium, 3 is high, and 4 is extremely high. Masks and other PPE are chosen based on the level of transmission risk identified for the expected activity. Low transmission risk, level 1, is considered work where at least 6 feet of distance is easily maintained full time and only broken intermittently throughout the day. This level requires a cloth mask. Examples of this type of work would be in the general instructional setting or in the office setting with 6 feet of distance being easily maintained.
So on this example, what you can see, here's the, I'll let you just take a look at these different pieces here. But want to point out that down at the bottom, you'll see a little in blue letters with an asterisk there. Whenever a face shield is added to any of the different face coverings, it can actually, it'll move you to up to the next higher transmission risk level. Okay.
Level 2, medium transmission risk, is considered work where at least 6 feet of distance is mostly maintained, but with tasks that require sustained several minutes of 6 foot distancing being broken several times a day. This risk level requires a surgical mask or a cloth mask and a face shield may be worn. Examples of this type of work would be individual small group instructional settings or in transportation settings with 6 feet of distance mostly maintained.
So again, you can see that you can wear a procedure mask like these white and blue ones that we typically we see around a lot, procedure mask, or a cloth mask with a face shield. Those are both considered to be the equivalent level of protection.
High transmission risk, or level 3, is considered work in close quarters. So a room with multiple occupancy where at least 6 feet of space is not maintained and includes tasks requiring sustained close contact, less than 3 feet, for more than 10 minutes per hour, multiple times a day. This transmission risk level requires a KN95 or a surgical mask and face shield. We will be providing staff in these risk levels KN95s and a face shield. If supplies were to run out, though, the alternative would be the surgical mask and face shield. Examples of these kinds of transmission risk activities or locations would be most special education classrooms, such as life skills, developmental preschool, and developmental kindergarten. While these also could sometimes be considered medium risk, we have identified these spaces as high risk because of the unknowns. So all staff are being put in this risk category if you are in one of these classroom settings, so that we know that you are adequately prepared with the proper PPE to handle those what ifs. Level 4, extremely high transmission risk, is considered healthcare work involving face-to-face, close proximity, or potential for coughing or sneezing while working with healthy or asymptomatic people. Potential for droplets of biological matter or fluids to become airborne within the breathing zone of the employee. The requirement for PPE in this risk level is an N95. N95s have to be fit tested, and some people cannot obtain a good enough fit. So the alternative for this PPE is a KN95 mask and a face shield. Examples of this type of work would include caring for symptomatic individuals in the care room or during aerosolizing procedures with a student, such as suctioning, oxygen administration, and nebulizing medications being administered.
Last but not least, we want to talk about the extreme high risk transmission PPE. That's the red here. Those staff members who have been identified as needing that type of PPE will be contacted by nursing services to have the appropriate testing and fitting done to have an N95 mask. So you'll be getting in contact from me and my staff to start that process. Just as an FYI, we will also have gowns. I don't have an example of one here today, but I think we all are familiar with what they look like, and so once we get them, we can answer any questions you may have. The other thing is that we want to really remind you and your students to wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And if you're in a bind, there will be 3 bottles of hand sanitizer provided to each classroom as well as refills. If you cannot obtain or find the PPE that you need for your task, you're to go to your building site safety COVID supervisor and they will assist you. Thanks.
Each day, families are asked to complete an attestation prior to their child coming to school. This attestation makes sure that they are healthy and safe to come to school. If the student is identified as not yet having completed the online attestation, they will be taken to the screening area in their building. Here's a short video of what that may look like.
Good morning, Joe. How are you? Have you done your attestation today? That's attesting you're feeling okay? All right, well, you gotta go there first, buddy. You've got to go to attestation.
Hi, are you Joe? Are you here to be screened? Okay, step over here. I'm going to take your temperature.
Each building will have an identified care room. The care room boot will be used to isolate any student or staff who appears symptomatic or indicates a fever, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle aches, or new loss of taste or smell, as these are symptoms of COVID-19. While we know that these symptoms can also be symptoms of other diseases, during this time, if a student exhibits one of these symptoms, it will be treated as a symptom of COVID-19 unless otherwise directed by their medical professional. Any symptomatic student presenting to the care room will be sent home with instructions for when they can return to in-person learning in accordance with the guidance from the Snohomish County Health Department. Only designated and trained staff should provide care for students or staff showing symptoms of COVID-19. These staff will be trained and provided the appropriate PPE for expected activities and will be called the care room staff. Staff members in each building will be trained and assigned to cover the care room. In some instances, a special services staff member may need to help support their student in the care room. Registered nurses are also a member of the care team and will work directly with all staff to follow the guidance from the Snohomish County Health Department. Any student who is sent to the care room with any one symptom of COVID-19 will be sent home. Parent or guardian is given a letter that we're calling the care room notification letter. This letter gives them guidance on when their student can return to in-person learning. Care room staff will notify the registered nurse, the student's teacher, and the attendance secretary that the student was sent home and cannot return until a specified date. The registered nurse will follow up with the student and family and update those previously notified if that date changes. Things that can change that date are if the student got tested for COVID-19 and the results of that test. Prior to any student returning, the RN will confirm with the family the day before the student returns that the student is safe to return to in-person learning. In the event a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19, there are reporting communications and procedures which will be followed. More details of this are in the COVID staff handbook and the student handbook. Highlights include that we will notify as few people as possible to the identity of the positive person. Communications are going to be mainly by phone to avoid information in any type of print form. If somebody is identified as a close contact to the individual who tests positive, they will be notified by the health department or by the district at the health department's direction. If you do not get notified, then you have not been identified as being a close contact who is potentially exposed. Once notified of a positive case, the district will work to create a close contact list to share with the health district. The school district will then send a notification to those identified as a close contact. This notification will alert them that they are identified as a close contact and must stay home for 14 days and monitor for symptoms. The school and school districts will not share the identity of the positive person. Following a positive case, a thorough cleaning of the affected areas will be conducted, and it may warrant the closure of a classroom. The role of the health room assistant for the HRA. The HRA will play a vital role as a member of the care room team. They will also be covering the health room when the care room is not in use. Donning and doffing the appropriate PPE and hand washing, they'll be able to utilize in both of these spaces. HRAs may also be utilized to help with morning screening, to safely distribute meals, and manage PPE as assigned by their building supervisor. They will have direct communication with the nurses to help them support them in this work. Any questions or concerns that they have, they will have access to a registered nurse at all times.
All right. So this point now, we're going to transition a little bit to some of the other pieces of the day. So for meals and that kind of thing, I'm going to play a little video clip here from Joanna Peeler. She's one of our directors for our food and nutrition services.
Hi, I'm Joanna with Food Nutrition Services, and we're excited to feed some kids. Breakfast and lunch is going to be available for all students at no cost for the school year. The meals will need to be picked up in the school kitchen. The meals will either be served by the food nutrition staff or available to grab from the fridge. Breakfast and lunch will include an entree, fruit, and a milk. Lunch will also have a vegetable. The meal may be baked together like this one. For schools that are currently producing meal kits, please work with the kitchen manager to get your meals. For schools that don't have food nutrition staff on site, we ask that you order your meals for your students the week before using a Google form. The meals will then be delivered straight to your site. Thank you, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Welcome, my name is Molly Ringo, Director of Maintenance, Safety, and Security, and I'd like to introduce our two custodial supervisors, Wes Erdahl and Trevor Bell, along with head custodian from Hawthorne Elementary School, Chris Kazin. They will be demonstrating cleaning and disinfection processes at Hawthorne and an appropriate classroom setup with distance furnishings. It takes a team for us all to keep classrooms, spaces healthy and safe. Neat, organized classrooms with minimal materials displayed facilitates cleaning and disinfection processes. A team effort between custodial staff and teaching staff. Teaching staff are responsible for maintaining custodial-friendly classrooms and for custodians to disinfect. We are all responsible for helping to provide a safe and welcoming environment. We look forward to adventuring together and having our students return on site.
All right, so for those of you who may not know these two gentlemen, the top is Trevor Bell and below is Wes Erdahl, and they are heads in our maintenance department, and they oversee our custodians, and they have been working tirelessly behind the scenes, even pre-COVID, as I'm sure you're well aware, when we get short-staffed and they work their tails off to take a lot of pride into making our schools as clean as they can be, and that. And so in these COVID times, even more so, right? Their pride in safety and cleanliness just is ratcheted up to the top. And anyhow, they've provided us, I think one of them, I think Trevor did some of the recording of some of the videos coming up, and Wes was the actor in there. And so they're going to be demonstrating some of the cleaning procedures, both that teachers and instructional staff can help with, as well as what the custodians do. And these are things that should not appear from the teacher end of it, or too much different than regularly, in terms of wiping off countertops and tables and things like that. But the custodians definitely do a number of extra steps in terms of making sure that our areas are sanitized and disinfected appropriately, using the best practice procedures, the newest guidelines, and also some less toxic products that help to clean and disinfect our areas. So those will be coming up in a minute. So as we get to that, though, I wanted to explain just for a minute the social distancing capacity that we've helped calculate for every classroom. So we've actually, for every elementary school, and then in every one of our programs, these 4 programs for our kids in these high needs areas in the middle schools and the high schools, we've gone through every single classroom, every common space, cafeteria, gyms, libraries, and determined what kind of a capacity could we make on a regular basis for people so that they're able to maintain at least 6 feet of distance. Now, that being said, I mean, people move around, right? But within that, is it possible to set up an arrangement and house a certain number of people in there and maintain that distancing? So pretty soon, once we get confirmation and of all these calculations, we've made calculations and then we've sent them to the buildings, and we're asking folks to actually, create some arrangements that might, where we're just kind of testing out the reasonableness of these capacities. And once we get all the feedback back, we're going to create these placards. We'll have 2 for every area. So one goes on the inside, one goes on the outside. And this doesn't mean that we're going to put that many people in the room. It just means that if we needed to, if we wanted to, we would be able to and still maintain social distancing. So if that makes sense. This includes adults and kids, again, on a regular basis. And so that's what you'll see. There'll also be, we're going to put the color dots on them as well to help designate the typical risk transmission level of that particular area, just like we've gone through. So this green here would indicate low. And so typically for a typical gen ed classroom, most of the risk transmissions would be low. That would be like being in the canoe. You would wear a cloth mask in that situation there. But for, as Carrie said, in like our life skills, development, or kindergarten, those types of classes would be, we're going to designate those as high risk. So we would have the orange dot on there, meaning that you would need to wear a KN95 mask or a surgical mask with a face shield. And that would be your proper protection. That'd be like the scuba diver example. So when we created these calculations, what we did was, rather than just going from like measuring from student to student as a single point, like if you're at the store or the bank and you're standing on a little dot sticker on the floor, we actually decided on purpose, we intentionally created this 1 foot bubble around kids. And then, so if I'm measuring the distance of that 6 feet, I'm measuring from the edge of my bubble to the edge of your bubble. and that 6 feet goes there. So it actually creates an extra buffer, right? It's more like 7 feet between people, if you're thinking of it that way. And so we recognize that by calculating it this way, we've actually reduced the number of people that we would be putting in the classrooms, but we did that on purpose because we also want to create some extra cushion for areas like, I don't know, just to give people flexibility, right? You might have, you may have a way to now make a little bigger walkway or something, or you may have some different areas of your room that you now have a little more cushion, and that's okay. And then we also then calculated into, or took into account some what we called subtraction factors. So for example, if we measured a room that was 28 by 26 feet, and we looked at our chart and said, oh, that would be 16, we could put 16 people safely in here socially distanced. But then we would look around the room though, and if we saw a sink in the room, which most elementary classrooms have, we would subtract 1 off for that. So instead of 16, we're down to 15, because we don't want to put a student desk right next to the sink. We always want to maintain a social distanced area around the sink, right? Same thing for the main doorway, right? We don't want to put a desk right in front of the door. People have to be able to safely enter and exit the room. And so that's another area. There could be other strange little protrusions in the edge of the class where maybe there's a vent covered up by sheetrock and all that, and it juts out a little bit. Well, we wouldn't put a desk there, so we need to subtract 1 off for that. Some rooms have multiple exterior doors, and so we don't want to block those either. So we subtract off another one, maybe another one. So anyway, you might see like a classroom that started out with, we could put 16, well now it's down to 13 or 12 or something like that. And so where others, just kind of geometrically the way they are, and there's just pretty much just the doorway coming into the classroom, that capacity ends up a little more true to what we would calculate. So it just depends a lot on the room itself, right? And so anyway, so that I just wanted to make sure you understood some of the processes behind that, and as we go forward there. Okay, so this is just a visual example here of Wes and Chris in this case, kind of measuring out and making sure there's little placards that will have little signage and stickers that they have for the floor. They also have some Velcro dots that stick really well onto the carpet. So when the teacher, when you're able to kind of arrange your classroom in a certain way, maybe you have student desks in certain areas, you can put these Velcro dots down onto the carpet. And then if things get moved around, you can just really easily move them back without having to remeasure and all that kind of thing, right? So they'll have that. So here's an example of those dots we're talking about there. Now I've seen some people being real creative at times with, maybe they'll get some, just a little piece of wood that's 6 feet long, like some sort of a piece of trim or something, or maybe a PVC pipe, they're cutting it off at 6 feet. And I just want to emphasize too, when we did our calculations and we made the 7-foot spaces, you can still put your desks at 6 feet apart. Okay, it's still okay to do that. We just calculated it out with that extra buffer. So I just want to be clear on that one. All right, so we, at the end of the, I'll just show you here. We do have, again, these types of cleaners that they can use. This would be at the end of a day, or to disinfect if we had, some more high level need to do that kind of a disinfecting. And we would do this in enough advance so that the aerosol particles would settle, and that those wouldn't be in the air as people are, entering and exiting the classroom during the day. But so this would be an example here. Wes is just demonstrating. He's pretending to be a teacher right now, or an instructional staff person, and he's demonstrating how we want to make sure to clear off counters and table areas at the end of each day to help really facilitate adequate cleaning. Makes it a lot easier and quicker, obviously, for our custodial staff who are spending a little bit of extra time. Now he's being the teacher here, so notice he's squirting and then cleaning right away. Okay, he's not using disinfectant right now. He's just using an all-purpose cleaner, just like you typically would in your classroom, like to wipe off pencil marks and sticky stuff, that kind of thing. The custodians, though, they have, when they're using their disinfectant at the end of the day, there's what's called a dwell time. And some of the lower toxic chemicals that we're using have less of a dwell time, which is nice. But what that means is they would spray it on the tabletops or surfaces, and they'd have to let it sit for 5 minutes or so. And then, so by the time they get done with the whole classroom, they're almost ready to start wiping them back off again. But it's important to let the disinfectant sit for a while to make sure that it appropriate does its job. Okay, but that's again just different than what he was demonstrating there. And again, he's using an all-purpose cleaner here, not the disinfectant. If it was the disinfectant, he would be letting it sit for 5 minutes. Okay. And he's going to demonstrate here, as Carrie had said in an earlier slide, everybody's going to have 3 bottles of hand sanitizer to use, like for just typical use. But then you'll also receive a refillable jug. So he's just demonstrating here in this example how to do this. There's some really good acting, I think, here without any sound. Look at that, even does the little ta-da right up there at the end. That's some good stuff there, Wes. Thank you. Okay, this is an example. Now you saw in Molly's video, she was showing the tubs of the different supplies that are for each school. And so this is what the and it looks like, different quantities of masks and face shields, the sanitizers, thermometers, this Velcro dots and other signage pieces too. I know this is kind of a longer list here for a PowerPoint slide, so I apologize for that, but I'm just going to give you just 30 seconds or so here to kind of read down through this. These are the roles and responsibilities. This would be what classroom staff, so teachers and paraeducators, would typically be responsible for in the classroom setting. Okay, and we've got others that are responsible for things too. We're all responsible for things. The principals and the office managers, there's a list that you can take a look at for what they'll be taking care of on your behalf. And then don't worry that this list is so short. This is the big high level list. Obviously, the custodial staff has like pages and pages of things that they're going to do here. So just want to let you see this though. Okay. And I'll let you give you a little time to kind of peruse this one as well. These are at the different stages during the day. Again, I know that's a lot on a PowerPoint slide there. So we'll be sending you the PowerPoint for yourself too, so you can look at this as well later. And we also are recording this one as well for those that didn't have a chance to see it, but in case if there's any pieces you'd like to see again.
So this slide is just with regards to classroom materials and equipment and some guidance around considerations for paper-based instructional materials, student manipulatives and tools, which I think I saw that somebody just asked a question on that, core furniture and equipment, and then any additional intermittent equipment needs. Starting with paper-based instructional materials, one of the things that we ask is considering making sure to make individual copies of any required printables, so any worksheets. This also includes any instructional materials, for example, if you need to print out directions or guidance or data sheets for your team, that we're doing that at an individual level. We encourage using the projector or the Elmo for any content sharing. So where you might have typically taken a hard copy around and shown individual students, we would request for any group sharing, consider using the projector and the Elmo. If you have materials that are used frequently with students that are paper-based, that are reusables, then we recommend laminating those materials, because in that case, they can then be wiped down and sanitized between use. We want to make sure that all staff have access to the online instructional tools as well. So this, for example, at elementary level includes like the NG Connect platform, but as well as like the Canvas and the special ed portal as well. So if there's any, if there are any barriers in terms of access to online or digital instructional resources, we want to work to make sure that all of your staff have access to those. The last piece is just considering how you can use digital tools to share student work samples. We know that there will be certain art projects, obviously, and it's okay to send things like art projects and paper projects home, but consider using at times just digitally scanning and or taking photos of student work products to be able to share via email, or Seesaw, as I know is a tool being used by many people as well. Manipulatives, again, are going to be individually packaged. We just got a large shipment in of materials that are being packaged up here at Special Services. And so those materials will be distributed once we get those put together. Additionally, we want to make sure that people know to just lock away or store any manipulatives that will not be used that particular day or aren't used throughout the week at multiple touch points. So if you have anything that's used infrequently or only at a particular time of the year, we ask that we make sure that we store all of those items away. Sensory tools are really intended to be child specific as we move forward, specifically if we're talking about use of things like jewelry, obviously, which would be child specific anyways. If you are sharing or utilizing different seating arrangements, again, you would at that point just need to verify that you can sanitize those items. If there are any items that you are concerned about that are cloth or fabric in nature, reach out to your individual regional director with regards to sensory tools of that nature. And then with shared manipulatives and tools, again, we would ask that we look to spray off, wash, wipe down any shared materials that we are distributing between students. Core furniture and equipment includes our student tables and desks. Again, it should be one student per, and that we would remove any additional seating. We want to make sure that our students also have access to any adaptive seating requirements that might be in the classroom for them. So that as well would be considered core furniture. This also includes changing tables, diaper storage, waste pails, storage cabinets and shelving. We ask that you prioritize using built-ins first and removing any excess removable or movable furniture if possible. And the last piece is recognizing that wheelchairs, walkers, and any other mobility or motor assistance equipment that's needed in the classroom is also considered core furniture. Some additional equipment that we know gets utilized in your classrooms on occasion include some of our different therapy equipment, maybe standers, the sensory rollers, pressure rollers, exercise balls that are being used for a specific motor purpose. We would ask that those are stored outside of the classroom if possible in the therapy rooms. and then just brought into the classroom when they are actively needed.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mindy Arnold from Special Services, and I wanted to share some quick ideas with you to help facilitate a smoother transition for students and for yourself as we prepare for in-person services, especially if you have new students coming to you. So not unlike the past, every time you received a new student, you would want to review the student's IEP. This would include, of course, service minutes, the population or the group of kiddos who are coming back to in-person services first will likely have a lot of services, and so it will require some coordination. So review those service minutes and then go over the IEP goals. And if you are receiving students in person, likely it is possible that those service minutes and those IEP goals may have been slightly modified for remote services. And if they were, take a look at the goals the students had prior to closure, and see where you're able to provide those services now that we're back in person. Second thing you might want to do is to reach out to the previous case manager and the service providers once you've gotten a good background on the student. Review data collection methodologies and tools, and please share. Please share among each other. There should have already been data collection happening. So share what what those tools are that you're using to collect data around these goals. And then review also with the previous case manager what the student's progress was during remote instruction and what might be their present levels now. And then you'd likely have to draft a student schedule. This will include a daily schedule that would, of course, be in coordination with the rest of your class. In addition to that, a service schedule. After that, you've kind of collected all your information and done some behind-the-scenes work, connect with your parents to review what the student's program will look like, either in-person services or continued remote services. Again, review that daily schedule. Parents are going to want to know what students are going to be participating in and what their day will look like, and service schedules. This next slide is around teacher planning time, and it is a major area of concern, and understandably so. Teachers are working really
Dave,
hard.
it looks like that audio got off.
And they need their time to plan. So this next slide.
All right.
It's okay, Dave. It's fine.
We
It's
could
playing.
speak to it. Just go back. We could speak to it.
Hey,
So
Zach, it's playing.
It's
Yeah,
playing planning time for recess, though. It wasn't matched up.
Oh, it's
planning time.
it was fine. It was planning time.
All right, we'll go give it another shot here, okay? And then
This next slide is around teacher planning time, and it is a major area of concern, and understandably so. Teachers are working really hard during this closure, and they need their time to plan. So not unlike when we were in the building pre-COVID, teachers can access their planning time during specialists and electives. Paras during this time would support students as they access the synchronous learning, the synchronous Zoom activities with specialists and electives, and this will continue to serve as their general education time, as the home setting currently is, and the remote setting is considered general education. If possible as well, paras can help with supporting students as they work on asynchronous activities for specialists and electives in it as well. One thing to consider, and again, this is very much like what you would do pre-COVID in the building, is you would have to plan para schedules around this specialist and elective time, also with consideration of breaks and lunch periods for the paras working in the classroom. Something else to consider would be, working with the building administrator to determine if there's a need for an alternate location to do your planning, as students will be remaining for the most part in that classroom while they're accessing the specialists and electives. And something also to think about is maybe to collaborate with related services to do some push-in during this time. And, with a population of students who are returning, there may be concerns around behaviors that paras alone might not be able to support. If that is a concern of our teachers returning, the recommendation is to work with their building administrators or special services to come up with a plan to support, so teachers can have this very critical time to plan for instruction. This next slide is around teacher planning time, and it is a major area of concern and understanding.
Hey, Dave,
So,
can we just move forward on
teachers
that
are
one?
working really hard. This next slide is around teacher planning time, and it is a major area.
Yeah, I don't know what it's doing. I'll speak to the last one, but it's got some weird overlay. Sorry, everybody. We lost a couple slides and had to re-enter them. This next one aligns specifically with the contract itself around just transfer expectations and what you can expect if you are specifically physically transferring to another building site to be able to take over an in-person program. The first piece, again, is just notification is required 4 days prior to reporting to the new building. Second, we want to make sure that people note that we will support any moves in terms of instructional materials. Those of you that are moving, some of you are moving into programs that already have those materials, so there should be minimal needs in terms of those moves. However, there are boxes available through the custodians at your buildings, and our facilitators as well will be available to help get you additional boxes if there is a need to pack up some instructional materials. If you do fall into that category, there's just information here that those will be picked up from your classroom. We want to make sure they're labeled with school name, room number, and then your name so that they get to the right place at the new building. Personal items are your individual responsibility, and so there are really three options. The first one is that if you are moving, you can definitely pack up your own items and transport them to the new location. If you have the space and your space does not need to be utilized by another teacher for students, you can store those in the current location. And then the last option is, of course, that you have the opportunity to just take any personal items home that you don't believe you will need with you. There are, per the contract, 2 release days that are provided for staff who are moving from one building to another. And that is expected to happen a minimum of 1 working day prior to the student start date. And what we would recommend, given our asynchronous and synchronous remote instruction right now, is that you look to do essentially 4 half-day releases in the afternoon in preparation for your shifts, for your moves. You can move past, yeah. There you go.
As staff and students begin to return to in-person services, if staff are exhibiting symptoms or are not feeling well, the process for securing a sub is the same as during the typical year. You would log into Frontline to report your absence. And then the only substitutes who will be available in the system will be individuals who have received training from HR on the use of PPE and on remote instruction as well. So you wouldn't be selecting any subs who haven't been trained.
Oh, this is my slide I just added today. So I've been doing a little research about kind of social distancing classroom setup ideas. And we're going to put this in the chat. I don't know if I'm going to be able to click on here, but I did find a couple of websites that looked pretty promising in terms of talking about social distancing classroom, like classroom ideas, and then also, oh, I guess this is it. Dave, did we put these in the chat or did I forget to do that?
I'm not able to see the chat right now, so.
Oh, okay. So anyway, these are a couple of websites that I found. There's also one about daycare activities and social distancing that had a lot of ideas about different games and things that you could play that, you know, they could work on their social skills, but be at a distance. So feel free when you get the PowerPoint to go ahead and click on these links, and then you'd be able to kind of play around with them a little bit and see if there's some ideas that might help you.
All right, and you know, as we said, we wanted to make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. And so one of the ways we've done that, tried to, is to kind of front load it through creating a COVID-19 staff safety handbook. And so I think that was mailed out, was sent out by communications to everyone in the past. So if you didn't receive that at all, when we send you this PowerPoint and other resources, we'll also make sure that that link to this handbook is in there. But you'll see that we've tried to cover everything in this presentation and more in there, so you can get some more information. And there's lots of links in the document too. So it's an electronic document we're considering it kind of a living document that we will be updating as things change, as we get new recommendations from the health district or LNI or OSPI. And or as we just learn better practices throughout, through time, through our own trial and error, or that we pick up from through our collaborative conversations with other school districts, and as we share our information with them. So so this will always be the most updated. If you click on the link to this, you'll always have the most current version that we have available. And so anyway, so as you can see, these are topics that are in there. At this point, I want to make sure that we have, I know the chat people have been utilizing that to ask some really good questions and important questions. And if you want to give you that opportunity to continue to do that. Let's see, there was a question that I knew, and Kelly, if you've been kind of going through the chat, if there's any questions that you're seeing in there that you'd like to provide some responses to. One that I had was that I knew from last time even was, a lot of our kids, especially in this group of these real high risk need students, they, especially over time, they're if they were to have to go to the care room, and then who's supervising them there, you don't think you understand. These are kids, they need us, like right? They're comfortable with who's with them every day. And so excellent question. And I think in this context, we would be doing it similar to how you do it just a regular year. If one of those students needed to go to the health room, right? Somebody would be going with them typically, or we would be sending them home anyhow. The idea would be that ideally it would be somebody from the classroom would likely be spending that time with them in the care room, so that they have somebody there that they feel comfortable with, that understands their needs and things like that. That's potentially an idea. There will be obviously some layers to this that we'll have to work through over time with the families and even with our own staff. So just understand that that's what we're doing. So anyway, Kelly, you had some other ones as well, right?
Let me make sure I'm talking. Okay, so people were asking about caseloads. Most folks have gotten their caseloads. There's just been a few classrooms that we haven't provided that yet for, because we're still trying to work out some issues and making sure that you don't get that you get the right caseload. We're going to be sending emails out to families next week to let them know who their new case manager is. And what we'll do is we'll probably BCC an email and include your name on it, and so that they'll have your contact then, so that we're not operating as a intermediary, but you will have an ability to connect with families as we move forward.
That's why. If they were doing this right, I wouldn't have an issue, honestly, because stuff happens. You could tell me that somebody walked in with COVID and
you need to mute yourself.
You're muted, Kelly.
Sorry, couple questions there about gen ed time, and I guess I would not expect that the students would lose their general education time. I think that if we are running into, and I know some people are running into some issues, could you reach out to your regional director or to me, and we can sit down and talk with your principals or administrators to just talk about how, and do some brainstorming around how students can continue to access their general education time. I think that would be a really fruitful conversation. So if you have issues about that, that would be something that you could do. And another question was about what happens if a student is sick and at home, will they automatically revert to remote learning? So you will not be responsible for both remote and at in person unless you've chosen to do that. And there's a few people that have chosen to do that, and we've given permission for that. So I guess I would say I would treat, if a child is out for a couple of weeks because of quarantine, I would just treat it like it was a regular school year, and you would provide, packets or information for the student to do at home while they're quarantining. So we wouldn't expect you to have, Zoom meetings or things like that for that student. Trying to think of what else I saw here. The same kind of goes with some of these questions where you're feeling like you're not connecting with the building administrators. I think that it'd be good to reach out to one of us or your facilitator to see if we can help you with that a little bit, because it is sort of it's an anxious time, and we want to make sure we're doing this right. And I think the building administrators are also pretty anxious as well to make sure that we do this right and that we provide what we need to for those folks who are going into the classrooms with students. So I always try to give people a little grace right now and take a deep breath. And if there's ways that the special services group can help you, please reach out and get some help. There have also been some questions about the chemicals being sprayed into the classroom, and I'm wondering, Dave, do you have any information about that, the toxicity level? I'm pretty sure that what I heard from Molly was that the level of toxicity really decreases, especially for the stuff that they're using at night, that once it air dries, which it needs to do, then it's non-toxic. Is that right, Dave, that you remember?
Yep, that's accurate. And the disinfectants that they were using even last spring, they've changed now. They've switched over to some that are less toxic and more environmentally friendly. And then again, as you said, after the dwell time, and after they have their dry time, even overnight, their toxicity level is compromised quite a bit, but that's fine because it's already done its job.
Mm-hmm. And we're still making some special arrangements for preschool and trying to work out those issues in cleaning in between sessions. And so for those folks who are asking those questions, we're still working on that piece. Trying to think of Anything else? There's a lot of questions on here that I'm just trying to get to those with that kind of a general theme. So
I'll jump in about attestation just a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
So
good,
some questions
perfect.
about that. We have access to the attestation for each kid before the buses or cars arrive in the morning. So yeah, we've partnered with a company called Rave. We already, as a district, have some other Rave applications. Some of you may have heard of Rave 911 and things like that. So they have created an attestation app that's used there's a lot on the East Coast. So we're partnering with them. They're integrating it right now with our systems. I mean, currently, like within last week and this week. And so what we'll hopefully be able to do is actually have a period of time where we will be able to use this as staff. So you won't need to do the paper pencil sign in anymore. It's going to send you an email, a link to a little attestation poll that you'll click on, and you just answer the questions if you have any symptoms or if you've been exposed to anybody, that kind of thing. And then we'll be able to then, but it'll actually ask a question too if you're even planning on attending, working on site or not. If you say no, it's like, great, have a nice day, stay safe, something like that. But if you say yes, I will be on site, then it'll ask you those questions. And so students will have that same thing. It'll be pushed to their, and then their parents will have, if they've got email addresses registered with us, there'll be some other ways to via texting, or there's a free app that you can download if you want the convenience on a smartphone. You don't have to, but you can. There's lots of different ways that we can get those. And so I think the question, especially when we have, lots of kids coming back, hopefully at some point, maybe, if that ever happens, then this app, especially the information that we'll have on the back end, will really be helpful for us to know, to make sure that students have attested. For this group of students, I think it's still, we can completely use this, or we can use it as a combo. Some it may work out. I don't know. I've had some different conversations with people that say, hey, we've got this really good backpack system that, where we send stuff home. We've got the notes and the journal things, and then it comes back to us in the morning. And it may be that is a more practical and consistent method of communicating with parents back and forth. We could have that as an attestation way too, since it's a smaller number of students. But so we can keep those conversations going. But the big answer to the question is yes, we will have every student and family will be attesting. The other piece that I want to just tie in on this is that the most important thing of all of this is to make sure that our families and our staff understand that you're not supposed to come to school if you're sick. Okay, don't come. This isn't just like, and I know like normal times, right? People send their kids if they're sick. Heck, we come to school if we're sick. This is a different deal. This is a community health issue, right? And so we're going to have to just really teach and communicate the heck out of this, that the importance, the significance of don't send it. Because if we get a kid here that's sick, if they have any of those symptoms, showing COVID-19 related symptoms, and we have to send them to the care room or however we need to manage this until their parents can come pick up, we may have to shut down a classroom for 24. Like there may be other kids and families now that are impacted for a period of time. And so we just can't allow the same kind of leeway as we have in the past. And that's just going to continually take a lot more of that education on it. But hopefully for those reasons, our care rooms will be empty most of the time. That will hopefully be the goal, because if we're using those a lot, again, that means that there's classrooms all over school that are getting closed for a period of time for cleaning and all of that. And this, in order to make this return to school scenario work, we can't be, hopefully that's right. We can't be sending people, turning them right back around and sending them home just to do full remote again. So it's going to be a community effort on that one.
So Dave, there was a question in here from someone about time. If you worked past your day today, if you work past your quitting time, to make sure you get a timesheet and submit it to special services, and we'll fill it out. We'll submit it.
Yeah. I hope everybody worked past their quitting time. We want to keep you here working.
No.
Your ending time. Right. Okay.
Sorry, ending time.
Yes, everybody that's beyond their contract time today, it will be time sheeted for the training. And that was as per Peter Scott. We had asked him about that
Yep.
a while back. So this is important to us that we have had this opportunity with you together.
Okay, so we're capturing the chat so that we're going to be answering as many questions as you have on the chat. And Dave, can you do that? Can you, since you're the host, capture the chat? Okay, great.
I can. And we want to just say thank you again very much for your participation today. For actually, I mean, that's important that you guys spent the time with us today. But far, far more important than that is what you do every day. The sacrifices that you make, the investments that you make into the lives of these kids and their families. It's heroic. And I didn't even really formally introduce myself at the beginning, but I'm Dave Peters, and I'm the right now the new director of student support services, but I was the principal at Jackson High School for the last 7 years and have worked in the district for 24 years total now. And so the kids that you are all serving it's a very, very special place in my heart for not only the kids, but the teachers and the parents, everybody that's working real hard with them. And I think all of you know this, that when I say that the rest of typically the rest of your teacher colleagues, all the gen ed staff, that there's so many people that have no idea what you do, right? They don't. And you guys put in so much blood, sweat, and tears, invest of yourselves. And that's why I'm saying, from my own experience, my own observations, and my own deep appreciation, thank you for all that you do. And we want to keep you safe. We want this to be a positive experience. So we're going to continue to do all we can to get the information together, get our procedures and protocols in place, and do that in collaboration with you and with the feedback that we continue to get. So thanks again, and have a fantastic afternoon. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, can we talk later?
Sarah, what did you say, Sarah?
I said, can we talk more later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Nice job, guys.
You too, Carrie. You did a nice job too.
All right.
Okay, yeah, good job, you guys.
That was, I thought that was much better.
Oh, so much better. It was so good.
It's clean.
Yes, it was really much better. Yeah, except for that little glitch with the.
Yeah.
But that's okay though. It's fine.
Yeah, it felt organized, and we felt thought through more. So.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, hold on one second, Lauren.
Okay.
Okay, just come in here.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta get off.
Oh, it's for Dave.
heard my name there. All right, Zach, thanks a lot. Appreciate your help on that.